Hey everybody, I've been sharing about the visionary state experiences and the circumstances that those led me to for quite a while here, and I'm coming to an end of an important segment of that story where I kind of like to summarize the experience, what you call, try to help link it all together from the early phase of my experience was in 1982, where I think it's important to note that I was introduced to Rosie Clearlight and her husband Howard in those visions. They were taking care of Bill Lee at the age of 8, going on 9, as he would always say. And in reality, they don't actually know each other. Now, I met Rosie and Bill Lieb in the same year, so in 1996 I went to see Frontline Assembly, and we met, but we didn't even talk. We just made what do you call, eye contact, and it was really a special feeling of seeing like a blue bolt, kind of like that New Order song. I always think of a bolt of blue shot right through all at once. So it was kind of like, maybe I was just nervous. I've been looking forward to meeting this guy so long. But when I was waiting to get in, he came up and he put his hands on me, and I wasn't sure what it meant, because I thought, hey, maybe that's my old boyfriend or somebody that loves me. And when I saw Bill going by, I was almost paranoid that I might not want to get stuck alone at the tour bus. So I wrote him a letter and said something about that. And so I don't know if this ties into the next visit, I should say, where that's when we finally almost had a chance to talk, and that turned out to be kind of a misconnection, so to speak. Now, when I had the chance to talk to Bill Lieb, he seemed like he would have been willing to hang out and visit, and actually seemed kind of interested, but there were a number of people trying to stop us from talking. And it took a long time to figure out exactly what happened, but what turned into was possibly that Bill and his wife were having marital problems, where maybe he was taking an interest in other women, and she might have been there to intervene and something like that, possibly with other people. But since I had written that letter and I mentioned, I wasn't sure how to take it when I realized he was the one who had those warm hands on me, I wanted to kind of let them know that I wanted to meet him, but I definitely I'm not a typical groupie. I grew up listening to industrial music. One of my favorite bands is Cabaret Voltaire, just like his, and I also had like a really good dream about them, so I thought, with that and all those visions, maybe it was time to reach out to Bill Lieb. Now, I wasn't really doing anything. I'm not an established artist. I don't have a demo or anything like that. I'm just somebody that can play an instrument, and I just think I fit in, and that, if I were to help somebody like Bill Lieb, that it's very possible, just as long as they like me and they can show me what they need. But on some token, at the same time, I could be very wrong, so this looks delusional, like maybe I haven't taken the right steps or gone through the right channels, which I figured out later is they want to see a demo and a portfolio, that of which I do not have. So they're kind of letting me know later on that probably one of my biggest mistakes was I wasn't ready with all that sort of thing. And so it seemed as if Bill Lee was telling me where to go for the hotel room party, which I thought would just be, band members and maybe some of the people that they connected with at the club, so I wasn't planning on being alone with him. However, I did try to invite him and his wife to my house, because I just thought it'd be easier to talk to them without all the people trying to butt in, and I wanted to let Bill pet Captain, my green parrot that roars like a dragon, so I thought he might laugh at that bird, because it sounds a lot like him when he sings, right? So, I definitely wasn't trying to get him in bed, and I didn't feel like, I could, at that time, I'm just thinking, well, the vision said that we'll be married someday, but I just feel like I really can't take that serious. But I could definitely consider working with him as an artist. I'm thinking he's probably married anyways, and sure enough, there was his wife. So I had a funny feeling he might be married, and if so, I think it takes a special person to love a man like Bill, so I would probably appreciate meeting his wife. And so, you know, if his wife is somebody who would genuinely like to keep a friendship with me, I appreciate that. But if this lady really hates me, and that's the whole reason she ran a smear campaign against me or whatever, and you know, kind of nice to your face, stabs you in the back, then so be it. It's just, you know, I don't really know the woman. She could be a lot nicer than you think. But, you know, when you put somebody in a position like that, sometimes they don't always make all the best choices. So, you know, I'm willing to forgive all these people and stuff. I mean, it's a long time ago. It's just that, you know, I've been sitting alone, and I have plenty of time now. I did start this video series shortly after Rosie died. And so over the past month or so, I haven't had to go to work. So I've been trying to knock out my story. So I've been working on this particular section of my story that I call the crazy making experience. And just thinking about it actually makes me very sad. So that's where you gotta, I think the advice, don't dwell on the past. Well, what I'm trying to do is process the past. And I kind of want to get it all out of my system one more time. You know, I just feel like it's something that I can't stop thinking about. So I don't think I've quite found resolve. At any rate, from the night that he invited me up to the hotel room, this is very critical. It's because I thought I was invited to be down there. Maybe not everybody in that group was aware of that, and I got labeled a stalker, and I got stuck with that forever. Now, in some ways, maybe I've paid into it by trying to meet him again and again, where in many cases he seems friendly and willing to talk, you know. Now, the very next year, so okay, I've been accused of, well, let me see, I got labeled psychotic, I got accused of being a stalker, and accused of attempting adultery, apparently, which, you know, again, it took me like 2 or 3 years to even find out that woman was his wife. And then, so the very next year, there were some people there to punish me, so they, waited for me to come out of the theater, and there was a van following me up the road going, there she is, and that turned into me going down to the Cafe Netherworld. And when Bill saw how angry I was, he went and hid in the men's bathroom until they could get me to leave. So the drummer Jason is the one that talked me into leaving, and so I left a comic with him. I tried to, you know, I told him, I know, you guys think I'm just crazy. He goes, no, I don't think you're crazy, that's why I talk to you. And it's like, you know, I just feel like, nah, dude. That's why I told him, I know, you guys just think I'm crazy. So, funny thing is, this Frontline Assembly didn't tour for like over 6 years after that. However, I did get a chance to go see Delirium in 2003. Now, between seeing Frontline Assembly and going to see Delirium, I had moved to Greeley to try to get out of the Denver scene, as far as like feeling like somebody was stalking me or something. So I felt like somebody was messing with me, and who knows, maybe the landlord and the police department were responsible, for all I know. But at the same time, I thought the Acacia being on the haunted house tour every Halloween sounds like it's a significant source of psychic activity. I thought, well, maybe I just need to get out of that apartment to also get away from the psychic activity. But I felt like somebody was still stalking me over at my friend's house. But once I moved to Greeley, I didn't feel like I was being stalked anymore. And then I was still coming in then for quite a bit so that I could keep going to shows and stuff. And then while I was living up in Greeley, then I was on the internet a lot, so that's where I was able to communicate more on Mindphaser. I was trying to find resolve, but then I ended up fighting with everybody that wanted to laugh at me, you know. And then it just seemed like Billy was nowhere to be found. So it's kind of funny now that I've so I've caused them to establish all of the security steps and things like that, so once you become a member and they kick you out, you can't get your membership back. And now that I'm completely kicked out of there, they say Bill's in there quite a bit, so it makes it look like he couldn't talk because of me, so that's another way of making me look bad. So anyways, when I saw him on the Delirium tour in 2003, I just assumed, okay, now that he's married, I can still go up and talk to him, but I just want him to know, I'd really like to talk about the visions at least so he could understand why I came to him. And so I asked him, and he's like, well, I'm not up to it, you know. And so I asked if I couldn't say it. I just wanted to ask for a hug, and I'm like, may I? And I put my arm out, and he goes, may you what? And I said, okay, then can we just do a handshake? And so when I shook his hand, he took his hand, let's say this is my hand, he took his hand, and instead of grabbing, he went like this, and then I had given him my phone number on the back of a card to my Kung Fu school, and I invited him to give me a call if he'd like to. But then he said something about looking for trash, so I felt like he's letting me know that he's throwing my number in the trash. However, after I left the theater, my phone was dead, and I was trying to call for a ride home, so I finally got home and plugged it in, and I missed an attempted call, and all I could hear on my voicemail was like some background noise that made me think, oh my God, what if that was Bill calling from the theater after pretending to get rid of my number? So it's just one of those things where, like, he said he wasn't interested in talking to me, but then I felt like maybe he tried the number. Now, the important part about going to the Delirium show was Bill let his hair grow out, and I've been saying I really had a hard time recognizing Bill as Billy, because Billy let his hair grow out a little bit and it was kind of curly in the back, and seeing him at that show with his hair grown out, and it's like I realized that is definitely the same person as Billy, whether he remembers it or not. And before that, I think I had mentioned on Mind Phaser that it was hard to identify him because of the hair. So by him letting his hair grow out, he was letting me see some form of confirmation that I was looking for. Whether it was on purpose or not, I'm not sure. But by seeing him like that, that's when I realized, oh my goodness, he is definitely Billy. I was like shaking, you know, I was like, ah. So it probably makes it hard to talk to somebody that acts that nervous. So anyways, after a couple of years, I decided to write him a big long letter. I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to write him a letter, and I just want him to understand why I contacted him. Like, you know, I don't expect anything like him fall in love with me or all that. So I started out trying to just making it as a matter of fact, but then I had these friends that were kind of like giving me grief, like, you know, making me feel bad for doing it. Then I think I bought this record, Boom, with Amelia on it. And when I looked through that, the cover art, I'm thinking, oh, I'll bet this is his new girlfriend. So I thought, hey, you know, maybe he's divorced, you know, because I did have that prophecy that he'd be divorced. And that was the one thing that he also may have confirmed at the church that one night. So I'll get up to that in a minute. But at this point, I felt like maybe I should put a few things in there to trigger the girlfriend, because she looks like a bitch, you know. I had a feeling, like, I just had an intuition that she was a bitch. And I just tried to tell Bill, like, oh man, you know, I've fallen in love with you. I feel like, you know, if you wanted to marry me, I could still marry you now. And I wish I could cuddle up with him and put my face into his curly keys, because that's, you know, that's the person I'm attracted to. I think what I've been really looking for all these years has been Billy. And if they're not the same person, then maybe I'm not looking for him. But if he's Billy, come and let me squeeze you and the whole 9 yards, because I feel like that's where, you know, I might be delusional. I've been looking for my imaginary friend, and him and Billy really aren't the same person. But anyways, after that letter was sent in the mail, I had a really vivid dream that I went to Bill's house and saw Amelia there, but I didn't know it yet. I had a funny feeling that it wasn't his wife, Carol Ann, but she had brown wavy hair and glasses, and I just felt like she was just a really dull person, and she wouldn't let us talk. And then later on, somebody mentioned Bill's house, and they showed me on Google Maps, so I looked at it. I'm like, that's the house, the blueprint. It was on sale, and so I had access to the real estate information. I'm like, that's the house. I like came in the front. I went up into his room, and I was sitting there. It was like that's where sometimes it's a type of remote viewing and astral projection at the same time. And then at the same time could have been sort of a dreamscape situation, because this is all going to connect later. So that was a super cool dream. Then I went to see them in 2006, the first time they had toured in a long time. And I talked to Bill, but he was in a hurry to get to his hotel room, and he had this chick with him. And he was friendly. I think I dropped off a letter trying to make some reconciliation again. And then in 2007, when they came, we all went to the church after the show, and Bill seemed like he was willing to to visit with me because he's like, see you at the church, you know. But then he got in the car with this other chick, and we all went to the church. And that's where I felt like he gave me direct confirmation, because I wrote to him and said that I prophesied that he would get a divorce to be involved with a young girl. And that's where he was dancing with that lady, but then he was talking over his shoulder right to me, and he said, hey, I finally got that divorce. And so I'm going to explain that stuff more in detail later on, but before we left the club, I said, hey man, can I give you a hug, you know? So I felt like I should do it because, you know, I really want to give Bill a hug. Plus I'm being prompted with that visionary thing back in 1982 where Billy, you know, said, I really need you to hug me. And it's like, ooh, do I have to? Well, so I put my arms around Bill, and he gave me a really big hug, and it was like, wow, it was such an alleviating hug, you know, getting a hug from him after all the tension that has built up over, because I do feel very conscientious that I feel like I turned into a troll and I let my anger make me look bad, you know. So it was just such a relief, and you gotta imagine, like, at this point, he'd had that big long letter where I explained everything up to including the part where I sure wish I could hug him and put my face into his curly hair, and even then, he still gave me that big hug, you know, so I guess that's not a bad thing. I mean, you know, other people try to make me feel guilty. Where Bill, you know, it's like, Jody, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I appreciate it. Don't worry about it. That's the message I feel like I'm getting there. And then that's when we took that van ride back to the tour bus with Jeremy and his little secret. Anyways, so it was kind of nice hanging out with those three for a minute. So I had Jeremy, Chris, and Adrian. And so that's the last time I'd see all three of those guys. And since then, I think Bill's had like an entirely different lineup. So, but he got Reese back, which is the original assistant electronic executioner. Now, 2007, boy, I left really pissed off though, because I still felt like, you know, Bill was kind of teasing me with that lady, you know, like, like, you know, it just makes me feel like, why would Bill want to talk to some dumpy chick like me when he can get with a pretty cheerleader? And so I walked away really heartbroken, thinking that that's kind of the mindset that Bill's into now. He's kind of into that, you know, that Hollywood producer kind of mindset, and he wants to have that, you know, that chick on his arm that just walks around and doesn't talk, you know, and just like an ornament, just like, oh. And then I went to see Delirium, and I waited till everybody was done so I could come up and talk to him. And then that lady was there, and he's like, well, you know, I got this person that has been neglected, and we got some business, and this lady was like kind of standing there pouting, and she had this really big, strong brother. So I believe her brother was like, you know, like a gold medal boxer or something like that, you know, somebody that was intimidating. And I felt like maybe, you know, she brought him along to let Bill see that he should resolve whatever she needs resolved, or else. So I felt like that lady was there to drag him off. And so we did a couple little hugs. I just felt like I had better give him a hug goodbye. If me and him don't get to sit down and talk, then I need to hug him goodbye. I was trying to end it there, and it's like, and he walked off on me with that girl, and I said, you know, I really need to talk to you. Can you please? And he said, okay, just wait right here. Similarly to the time in 1998, you know, I thought I was invited to that hotel room party. And so when Chris Peterson uninvited me, because what happened is, like, you know, Caroline went to all those other people, and so he was trying to help her to uninvite me. So Bill was inviting me, but those other people were uninviting me, so I got him on the phone, and he said, well, he's like, well, I have to go to bed, but he said, maybe I can come down there. I was kind of being insistent, like, come on, man, I need to talk to you. And it's like, you know, so of course maybe I'm being pushy, and he didn't want to take no for an answer. So he's just like, well, then wait down there and I'll see if I can make it. So I think this is a little trick that Bill uses, is just wait right here and I'll be right back. And so he left me sitting down there at the hotel room lobby back in 1998. And now this time in 2008, 10 years later, there I was waiting in the lobby at the theater where they played, you know. And so after a while I got sick of waiting, so I went around to the tour bus, and I'm pretty sure I saw him peek out, and then he had someone come out and tell me he caught a flight. And I almost thought maybe he was making a reference, because I kept saying I think that lady was providing cocaine to him. So maybe he was kind of letting me know, or making fun of me for assuming maybe that lady's in there providing coke for him. but she looks like the type, you know, and so that's why, you know, I went away super heartbroken. And the very next year, I went to a medicine man on the South Dakota to do vision quest. So something I had read about, and I thought, well, maybe this is what I need to do since I've been having visions all these years. Then maybe I should go to a vision quest, go to some place where they believe that, you know, going into visionary state is actually a meaningful and useful aspect of our psyche, you know, rather than just, you know, something that's fun to talk about, like, oh, isn't it weird how blah blah blah. Like, this is important shit. Like, so that's what I love about these tribal people, is they think that, you know, the stuff we dream about and the things that we see when you know, we're not using our usual five senses and we're using, you know, out of body senses, that those are actually valid senses to the extent that they should be looked at. And so going to that, I didn't really get answers, but I learned a lot of other stuff I needed to know to understand about spirituality and tradition and music too. So it was kind of an education for my life as an artist and as a musician. So didn't really find a lot of resolve there. And then my friend Rosie made a bunch of money off of a sale, and she said, you know what, I will buy your bus ticket to Big Fork. So I went to Big Fork to live with Rosie because I felt like, you know, I'm running out of options. Like, I can't be around my friends because they're just mad at me because I won't stop talking about Bill Lieb. I'm so messed up about it and can't stop talking about it. And so Rosie's the only person who would let me talk about it. She never once tried to shut me up, you know. She just didn't like it when, so at first let me see, when I first got into Big Fork, I must have had a visionary slip. And then that spring, this is one of the best parts of my story as well. You know what, I almost forgot, you know, like if we look back at the visionary slips, the ones I had when I was a kid, those were kind of going unnoticed. That's where I had Billy, so that wasn't such a bad part of my experience. It was almost like thinking Billy was my boyfriend, or that I might, you know, see him again, was kind of nice. But then the next portion of my story I call the crazy making experience. That's when I actually went to meet him, and things started escalating, and I started having a lot more of these visions where I would be, you know, in a conversation with somebody and they would just dump a lot of information on me about Bill Lieb and stuff that's going to happen, including the time trip I did in 99 to 2000. So it just sent me from the beginning of November 99 to the end of January 2000. I stuck around for about until the first week of June, went back to November, then I relived it all, and that's when, boom, it all came crashing down, that I've been going into visionary state, and that all this narrative built up about Bill Lieb could be completely false because I can't make a connection with him. So that's where I started getting really frustrated. It really set me up for a great deal of embarrassment by making me meet him, by making me confess to somebody that I do love him, or, you know, just trying to carry through on my end was super humiliating. But then I was still kind of fascinated on the fact that I've been going to visionary state, and I'm just like, okay, maybe this guy isn't really going to marry me, but I've definitely been going into visionary state, and it's definitely worth looking at. And that's where I did my rounds on Mind Phaser until we were all like mad at each other, and I'm blocked out for eternity. And then let's see, so I write him the letter, and I go to see him. Well, before I left Montana, I was having visions where people would tell me that Amelia Bentley is the person who's going to put me in touch with this old friend of mine, and what she's going to do is she's going to give me his phone number. And it had all this other information about her, like she's like a party planner, and she's not really his girlfriend, but she pretends to be. And so when I got into Montana, I would say, you know, spring of 2010 is when somebody said, hey, Jody, you might want to try going on Facebook. So I went on Facebook, and of course, first thing I did was I started looking for Bill Lieb, and she had created a fake Facebook page for Bill, and so she caught me going on there, and then she contacted me, and she's like, hey, you're a fellow Skinny Puppy fan. And then she had his number on her wall, and it had some kind of little joke. So I thought, oh, this is it. This is the person they told me. She was going to put me in touch with an old friend of mine. So I called the number, and Bill sounded like, oh, oh, like, happy to hear from you. Oh, I appreciate all your messages. Feel free to call anytime you want. I got off the phone. I was like, ah, finally, 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 yay. And then she came back at me, like, you weren't supposed to get that number. If you called that number ever again, we're calling a cop. So, like, around the time this was happening, I started having another episode where instead of going into visionary state and coming back to relive it, I was reliving other times that I came from. So there was the time in 1983 that I've already shared about a few times, and that's where 1983 I saw myself in 2010 spinning my nunchucks and listening to Armin van Buuren State of Trance on my headset. Okay, so I think that's one of my best ones too. So when I went out there and I spun my chucks and put it all together, it was a really nice day. And I felt really good. Like, I felt like I had a lot of extra power in me that day. It was a really colorful example of how I was able to see the future. Of course, that probably put on the back burner of my memory until I was out there reliving it, and until I went next door to my neighbors to talk about it. And I looked out, and it just really helped me put it all together. That's where I was at Bill and Stella's. That's why their bedroom was different. It was our neighbor's bedroom. And then 2006, I was training with a guy they call Guru Brockman, and Kuntao Silat. They give you names like Guru and Uncle, and so that means he's just like a really experienced instructor. And we created a special program for my training that I'm a mystic warrior. I'm the kind of a martial artist that has psychic awareness. And I was his only student like that, and so he had me go down and meditate for 100 breaths. And then when I was done, he started talking about some of the weapons that Howard Clearlight made. And he showed me this weapon and explained this knot. Okay, and so when I found this weapon in the corner at Rosie's house, she said, Howard made this and that. He wanted me to keep it, and she explained the same exact thing about the knot. And then he took me on a little truck ride, and he took me to a place that was a hill across from the high school in Big Fork, and I could see the Flathead Lake. And then I think the next time travel thing I did was in 2009, my friend Elias and I went into Arizona. So we were going to like, it was like a little pilgrimage. I was going there because there were going to be medicine men and spiritual leaders from all over the place that are tied in with the indigenous communities. And I thought, this is where I went to meet Uncle David. So he's the one that did Vision Quest that I went to later. And so on that trip back, we were driving through Colorado, and I did a time trip while I was driving. And I ended up driving through Woods Bay. That's about 5 minutes south of Big Fork. And I saw my friend Ted's cottage, or his cabin where he was staying, with his truck in front of it. And my friend, see, Jody, an old friend of yours lives there. And so, let's see. So being in Big Fork again, I was able to relive the nunchuck experience. And then when I went over and I found that place where I could see the water, I remember Roger took me there, that weapon, when Rosie went over it with me. Let's see, and then I got there in summer of 2009, and I had a visionary slip that took me to that point, so I relived that as well. And it was kind of freaking me out because I kept seeing people at the grocery store like it was all deja vu, It was kind of like, I swear I've seen them somewhere. I swear I've seen them somewhere before, is how I was feeling. So, and then I made friends with this guy named Ted around spring. So like after I got put in touch with Bill, I made friends with Ted, and Ted caught my eye because I thought I knew him from somewhere. And it turns out that before I left Denver, I had a vision that he was coming to my Kung Fu class, and that he gave me a ride home in that same Jeep that he was driving when I met him. And he's a tennis instructor who's had some Kung Fu training, so he showed me how he took his staff and put a ball on the end of it so he could teach people how to swing the racket by having the ball out like that. And so he gave me that same exact talk in Big Fork that he gave me in Denver. and up to including that he wears his gi pants with nothing under it. So lots of funny details. I was like, we were like having that same conversation, and then boy, it's like, so in 2010, after I got put in touch with Bill Lieb and I got threatened by his girlfriend, then it was like, boom, you know, all these instances where I had time travel. I'm catching up to that, and I was getting other additional information. So it was like really freaking me out because I thought, oh my God, Bill Lieb is here. I was thinking he's got to be around here somewhere. So that's where I saw Ted, and I thought, well, maybe he's Bill because he looked like Bill with a wig on. So there's something about Ted that's very similar to Bill. Now, me and him made friends after he got another girlfriend that was, so Ted's a little bit older than me. Found another girlfriend. She was cool as heck. And so, like, I made friends with them both and brought them home. And so Ted really loved Rosie. So, you know, Ted almost wanted to marry Rosie. So he became good friends of ours. And he ended up helping us make the connection to the Gold Prospecting Club, where we would meet Gary. And Gary was the man living in this house. So Ted was super important. So, so it was kind of confusing him with Bill Lieb for some reason. But, you know, it was prophetic information driving past his cabin and seeing his truck. Him in Denver, and I even saw his notebook in Denver. So I thought he was one of my fellow students in Shaolin, and it turns out he's never, you know, he's been through the Denver airport, but he's never spent any time in Denver. So just stuff like that. And so I was getting all this information thinking Bill Lieb's got to be around. I thought he was maybe in the house behind me in the alley and all kinds of stuff. I remember me and Rosie took truck rides all over trying to find clues, you know, like trying to answer these clues. But I also got some other scary information coupled with it, so I was super worried about other things that I'm not able to really talk about. But then it started coming clear to me that, you know, Bill Lieb's not anywhere around here, and his girlfriend's like, dude, you need to take some lithium, you know. So, like, me and her fought until she threatened. And, of course, I don't take the threat seriously. I think she was just blowing up at me, so I'm not worried. Like, I don't think she's going to come here and slash my face. But, Bill asked me not to contact him. We have to part ways for a while. So I felt like, well, maybe it's just temporary, but it took me a long time to get back to him because I figured as long as he's involved with that lady, it's a wasted effort trying to connect because she monitors everything he does. So, like, if I text him or call him, she'll know. And so I found out that not only has he broken up with her, but he had moved away. And maybe he's even had a couple of other different relationships. And I thought, well, maybe now's a good time because I was getting other flashbacks. So in 2019, I started getting some other flashbacks. Now, 2018, Bill's good friend Jeremy had passed due to a heart attack. And so there was this lady named Teresa back in the 2011 or 2010. I don't know what it was, but I was calling Bill one day, and she was right there alongside of him. So he told her about me a little bit. So she contacted me, and she said, you know, that she's trying to help, you know, that he asked me, is there any, you know, like maybe he wanted her to help us. So the funny thing is I think I remember Teresa from Vision back in middle school, so I may have seen her a couple times. And so maybe maybe she is trying to help. I'm not sure. At any rate, as she and I started getting to know each other, I'd also gotten to know Bill's ex-wife, and they were both telling me that, you know, he keeps denying that he's in a relationship with Amelia, so that's why the ex-wife wasn't taking him back, and that's why Teresa, I think, was trying to date him, and then they ended up quitting talking over this. She was too mad at Bill for lying to her about Amelia, and so that supposedly ended their friendship. So she would stay in touch with me, and now she's getting to the point where she's just like, get over it, I don't want to talk about it anymore, that kind of a mentality. So it's kind of making it look like they don't know each other, and like, hey, you know, I've had the same thing, you know, these guys are just jerks, you know, so it happens to everyone. Maybe you're just too sensitive to get over it. That kind of mentality. But at any rate, she came out in 2018 because she was going someplace and thought she'd drop in, but then when we sat down and started talking, and she said, so have you heard about Jeremy? And it's like, well, of course, you know. And you know that that really broke my heart. I mean, I just figured Jeremy would probably outlive Bill as old as he is. And so really shocking to me because, you know, last time I seen him, I thought, man, I sure wish I could have given him a hug, but, you know, they were making those little wiener jokes and all that, so I wasn't sure if they would appreciate it. But I would have definitely, I definitely wish I could have given him a hug goodbye too. So I like Jeremy, you know, but he was taking sides with Amelia a little bit and kind of jumping on the the crazy train and using the psycho bitch thing on me. And so I did feel a little bit resentful, but when he died, I sincerely felt bad because I know he's a good person, and I know Bill Lee loves him very much. And I'm not saying that in any other way than as a platonic friend, I'm not trying to say they had a little secret or anything, I'm just saying, that some people have that kind of karma, like regardless of what your relationship is, you can really love somebody closely. And that's how I feel with Rosie, like she was like my closest friend, and when she died, it's just like I felt like it's like losing half my body, it's a horrible feeling. But at any rate, that kind of got me thinking about Bill and worrying a little bit too, because I know a lot of artists had been dying, and there were some pretty young people out there having overdoses and just mysteriously dying and being found alone. And so Johnny Rotten was saying something like, well, the reason these people keep being found alone dead is because there's nobody that is there taking care of them. Nobody really loves these people. So, a lot of these big artists, like, sure, they have a big following and they've got lots of fans, but then in their personal lives, sometimes these people become isolated because of their drug addictions. Like my friend Rosie was telling me about Janis Joplin, how famous she was, but before she died or committed suicide, she was in a state of mind where she felt like nobody really loved her, like all these fans, like that's not real love. That's like, you're in love with an idea, not, these aren't people that, are going to really take care of you. So, so I felt like, maybe these visions, like, so I was having a flashback in 2019, and that was the one where in 87, I thought I was at my boyfriend Juan's house, but I went into a visionary slip where it was Billy, and Billy was just really urging me, please, whatever you do, don't forget who I am, I love you, just like, oh my God, so I just started thinking, man, maybe that means something, maybe I have to contact them, because, all these people are dying, and, and maybe he just needs somebody to say, hey, guess what, I love you. And so that's what I was really hoping to accomplish. But then I got him on the phone, and he sounded real happy to hear from me. It's like he got my letter, and he said he can't wait to talk to me just as soon as he can. Then I couldn't get a hold of him anymore, and it just made me so mad. I just thought, why in heck, can't I get through to him? I thought, well, maybe he's going back to his ex-wife, because if you look back at that story of meeting them in 98, she's somebody that doesn't want to let us connect, for any reason whatsoever. And then, so I tried to ask her, and she's like, well, she gave me a vague answer. Didn't really tell me anything. So I thought, well, maybe he's got another girlfriend. So this is where I'm guilty of being nosy and prying, and I created another Facebook page so I could refriend him or find out. And so there was this cute chick from Spain named Nuria. So I got a hold of her, and she said, well, she's the one that told me that Bill's going back to his wife, and that they're just like boyfriend and girlfriend. And after, so when he comes to Europe, they're going to see each other one more time, which I just assume they're going to have sex one more time before he marries his wife. She said, otherwise, she's perfectly in the position to marry him, except only she doesn't want to move out of where she lives, And so anyways, I let Bill, I don't know, I was just really mad because Bill kept, I guess he's ghosting me, he's just not answering my calls. And I was just getting madder and madder, and I'm just thinking, I almost feel like he's enjoying making me mad. Like he just said all that nice stuff, so I'd get mad when he don't answer. So I let her know too. I let Nuria know, and she's like, oh, well, he's such a nice guy. He's only ever sweet to me, so I don't think he's a mean-spirited person or anything. It's nothing personal. He's just busy. And then, so anyways, I guess I'm going to say his wife, because they got married as far as I know, that, because, I feel really resentful that, she was kind of punishing me earlier because he's interested in other women, and that's what this whole thing has been about, is like, it's like they made me a scapegoat because he doesn't want to be married, so it's like me getting called a psycho bitch is a perfect distraction, so that's how I feel the resentment there. And so that's why, I went ahead and told her, you know what, you're never going to be able to keep them to yourself. I mean, look at this situation with Nuria. And then she really went off on me, and she said, you know what makes you crazy? That you obsess over what you believe. And that just made me mad, because I felt like she was trying to be friendly and supportive until that day. I just felt like, you know what? And then she posted something about mental illness, so that's why I'm just like, oh, that was a passive aggressive way of just saying, I think you're mentally ill. You know, and it's like, one of the reasons I thought he wasn't taking my calls because if he's trying to get involved with her, you know, and she's like, well, I don't control who he talks to. That's funny because that's what the other girlfriend said too. Amelia said something like, well, I don't control who he talks to. And it's like, then explain why every time she catches us talking that she ends up freaking out until he had to call off the connection, you know. So like she made such a big deal about it. We quit talking for 8 years and she has to come back and say, well, I don't control, because we reconnected too around the time I was sharing my stuff after connecting with Nuria. On my second page, you know, somebody reported me to her, so that's where she came into that conversation. And so it's funny, both these women have been a major influence on Bill as far as like him seeming like he wants to talk to me. In each case, these women would stop it, right? And so here he is going back to the one that he married, and they were going, I don't control. And it's like, sometimes that's how people admit that they do control what other people do. Like, maybe you don't see it that way, but if you're going to flip out and give him grief because he talks to me, then you are controlling him. So that's where, you know, I'm starting to feel worried because, you know, I started telling my friend Rosie, I said, okay, it looks like he's going to marry his ex-wife, and, you know, I should be happy for him because, you know, I don't like him out here dating these gold diggers and all these people like that, you know, and you know, hookers. So I was told in my visionary state when my dad had that book around Christmas of 1998, he had that book about us, that one of the things that I would find that I don't like about Bill Lieb is his attraction to hookers, right? So thank God, you know, he's going back to his wife. She's not like that kind of person, you know. And I figure at least this is a real friend, somebody he's known a really long time. You know, I figure if she's taking him back, then she must really care about him. So I'm telling my friend Rosie about this. And I'm showing her pictures, and she's like, yeah, but Jody, that lady looks like she likes to punish, you know? And I thought, you're right, you know, there's not a single picture of her smiling or anything, and she just has like this really serious, tight look on her face, and there's a part of me that just feels like, you know, maybe, you know, maybe there's something wrong there. And like I was told in my visions back from that book that, you know, he would go back to his wife, but then he would eventually leave her again. And I thought, hey, you know, so none of my business. It's just that you gotta understand with me, I feel like, okay, it's been crazy of me to keep trying to contact this person. It's been crazy of me to share with him so much, because now I'm in a one-sided relationship where I'm doing all the talking and he's just, he doesn't really tell me anything. And he hasn't given me very much confirmation except for maybe that one little slice about, I was right about the divorce thing, and he let me know. Well, I'm making a second prophecy that he's going to want to divorce his wife. And so maybe that's where that cry for help, like, please don't forget who I am or you may never see me again. What is this referring to? Is it so he doesn't, one, end up like these other artists, you know, like the guy from Prodigy, you know, or any of these other people, Phil Western, you know, these people, and I'm going to say Ian Curtis because he cheated on his wife and she was probably giving him a good deal of grief, and even though he's probably contemplated suicide, I feel like these type of relationships can drive a man to his end, you know. So if the woman, you know, is harboring a lot of old resentment, or if they have trust issues, like, you know, maybe she took him back being based on trust, but it turns out you can't really trust him still. That's where I would be concerned about Bill Lieb as a friend. And so, like, you know, maybe it's out of my hands because, you know, I don't have a personal relationship with him, but I just feel that if there was anybody in the world who sees this video and they do have a personal relationship, I would hope that they kind of just, you know, that if there's somebody that can like really talk to him and stuff, like try to stay in touch with him on a regular basis, you know, like he might not tell you the truth, but he could be suffering in one way or another, you know. So I'm just wondering if he's in any trouble right now. And, you know, and I kind of have to take into consideration, like, so the reason I've been making these videos is I just want to get them off my chest. But I'm just thinking if he watches them or if it has upset him because of the things I'm saying. I'm not really interested in upsetting Bill or making anything bad for him. But I'm just trying to heal from my own suffering, because some of the things that have happened, I like to get you to understand is if it wasn't for the visionary state experiences, it wouldn't have gone this far. It really wouldn't have. And so it's not his fault. There are other circumstances that were causing me to want to meet him, and it's sort of a type of mental manipulation. It's super impressive. I don't know if this is a government experiment. I doubt it because it's such a high up. And I'm not going to say it's the devil. I think that's also a short-sighted answer, but there's definitely some proof that visionary state experiences are real, and there are a number of people who can attest to them. But because it was making me want to go meet Bill, I walked into a bad situation, and because of his personality, because he plays aloof, he already has other problems, that made a perfect mess, is I'm dealing with somebody who can't communicate. Now, the question is, you know, I've been told that this man loves me so much. What if it's true is that every time he meets me, he feels like he loves me, or maybe he's had his own visionary state things, and he's had to have his own awakening to the situation, to where he's never wanted to give in to Carol Ann's accusations. Like, if she thought he was interested in me, he wants to do everything to make sure she doesn't think so. And so, like, the narrative saying, you know, he likes hearing from me but doesn't communicate because he doesn't want to get caught, you know. So he's always been like, feel free to write anytime you want, but then I can't get him to call back. Or if I do talk to him, he keeps it really short. He'll be like, first of all, he lets me know that we don't have time to talk, but I just wanted to say hello and appreciate hearing from you. I hope you're doing good. So he's been nice to me. So it's almost like, you know, assured me that he doesn't have a problem with me. He just can't talk to me. Now, I'd love to take that for face value, for sure, because it's been alleviating for me to be able to communicate all this stuff, but at the same time, I'm starting to feel really paranoid that I've gone too far. It's just one of those things that people normally shouldn't do, you know, like people should know when to give up, and I think I would have normally give up a long time ago, and I probably wouldn't even taken an interest in the first place. But please understand, it comes from the visionary state experiences making me want to meet him, and I walked into a situation where I went into the crossfire, and I think, you know, if there's any chance that this guy's ever loved me, maybe these women are catching on. So I've made some comments about that in my past videos, and that they sense it, you know, and so he's done everything he can to deny it. And so that's where, you know, you get this other information. It's kind of silly stuff, but there's a lot of different things that have come true. And so that's where, you know, maybe that's the biggest hang up. Maybe I'm the information is correct. Maybe the person does love me. But let me tell you what, if they don't love me, then there's definitely something else going on here that we have to take into consideration. Well, at any rate, I really wanted to kind of bring this story to a conclusion, in case I get too busy to continue it. It's just sort of looking ahead, you know. I'm going to share about the times that I met them in, you know, 2007, 2008, after I moved to Big Fork and all that good stuff. And so I haven't really been able to draw much of a conclusion. I feel like, hey, for all we know, this guy really loves me, and he needs to just have something happen to make him realize it or come out of the shell. But I feel like there's also a very strong chance that he doesn't love me at all, and this is all crazy stuff. So as far as defining what makes me crazy, you know, maybe there's a lot of good crazy things, but I feel like wanting to talk to somebody that doesn't talk back to me, that makes me crazy. And the interaction in itself is a crazy making experience. And I gotta plug this in. I'm killing my battery to do this video. So what makes me crazy, this is what I need to talk about, you guys, is being driven to contact somebody who probably doesn't want anything to do with me, but if he genuinely has appreciated hearing from me, then I'm not in the wrong there. I'm not guilty. But the thing that makes me crazy, though, is the mind games, you know, the put downs, you know. One of the best way to drive somebody crazy is just keep calling them crazy. It's called you're projecting your expectations onto others and thus increasing the likelihood. So I feel like, you know, being called a psychotic bitch, you know, like I should slough it off, but I just feel like, you know, if they're treating me as if I really am a dangerous psychotic, and that's why he's tiptoeing around me, and that's why he's just been like, oh no, you're fine, and other people are like, no, you have to stop, whatever you do, stop. So I'm getting mixed signals, and we're dealing with somebody that's a liar. But at the same time, you know, I'm remembering stuff that has yet to unfold. And I just want to start to I kind of want to wrap it up this year. So that's why I'm going to finish all my videos, and I kind of want to wrap it up this year. And I kind of feel conscientious that it sounds like I'm obsessing over somebody. And at the same time, it's because, I keep doing these videos one after another. It looks like, damn, why doesn't she get over it and move on? It's, well, because it's a long story. And I've only gotten up to 2002, so I think the rest of it isn't going to take as long to tell. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up that I want to finish the story. But I'm going to try to pace myself a little bit, because when I did all these last ones about my crazy making experience, it got me really depressed. At any rate, let me see. I was trying to draw this to a conclusion where I'm saying, since Rosie died, I've been just trying to process, how I got to Montana. I thought this would be a good time to just go over that whole experience and process it all. And since I haven't been able to talk to Bill Lieb, I was really hoping he'd watch all the videos and find an understanding with me so he can see, what exactly has driven me to contact him. But as a consequence of meeting him, I think he's an absolutely adorable guy, and that I could easily have a close friendship with him, at least one like Rosie. I'm really not sure, what my level of attraction is to him, to be honest. It's something sort of you have to experience by being with them, so it could be a false sense of attraction, or it could be genuine. So I'm really open-minded as to, is this all a false sense of attraction or not? And so that's something where I felt like being kept apart from him. Now, I have a friend who met his wife on the internet and married her 3 days later. So sometimes you can meet somebody and know that you love them. And I always thought that I loved Bill, but I'm open-minded. I could have a false sense of attraction. So it's really up to him to meet me halfway. And if he's just if it's just never going to happen, it's just never going to happen. And that's where I have to be able to, say, okay, this is what we're going to do from here. Because, at this point, I do kind of want to have open arms. If Bill wants to be in my life at any point, I want him to have the opportunity. But if he wants me to be out of his life, he certainly hasn't communicated that strongly enough to convince me. At any rate, I'm going to try to end this here and say, if Bill's watching, again, I love you very much. I hope you're okay. I feel really worried because I don't hear back from you anymore, and I can understand if you're upset about these videos, but that's not the reason I'm making them. However, it has been a really horrible experience for me, and I just want you to see my side of it. Maybe there are some things that you didn't know were happening. Maybe you had no idea what these people were doing to me, and that's also part of the reason I want you to see it. I want you to see what was being done to me, and that it's not your fault entirely, except that maybe you're shy and you can't always be truthful. But if Bill Lieb loves me, it would be greatly appreciated, and it would be so exonerating from all these accusations. But definitely see that stuff behind me. Those are all people that are important to me. Bill Lieb is somebody who I value greatly, and that's why I got him up there with my dad and my kung fu teachers and Rosie. But anyways, I love you guys. If you're watching, take care. Have a good day.